Well, thanks for your time today, Mayor Spencer. I want to start by asking you about today's news. Why was it important for the city to move forward with acquiring these properties through eminent domain?
You know, when you have vacant, abandoned parcels, they are not only a blight and really, hard on communities, but they really have a very negative fiscal impact on the city as a whole. And so they're a drain on community, and these are properties that have been languishing for far too long. This is an important first step in really revitalizing an area that is in bad need of revitalization.
We've talked a lot over the years about that impact. How have you seen those properties impact some of those neighborhoods on the north side in your time as alderman and as mayor?
Oh man, so vacant properties have been an enormous challenge for the city as long as I've been in office, and for decades really. We have just an enormous number of vacant parcels, many of which, like these, are held by private owners. And it's like being held hostage by a property owner that is really refusing to invest in the property. And when you're a neighbor to one of these parcels, or even, kind of on the same block or in the same community, it is, again, not only demoralizing, it really impacts your own property value, your own ability to invest in your own property. And so it's really brought down, the level of vacancy has really brought down entire communities.
What is the city's capacity to take on an additional 90 properties, if not 1,600 eventually? I mean, the city already has so many properties that are vacant that the city has. What's the capacity to hold those and to stabilize those? And then what's the long-term plan?
The city does not have the capacity to take on thousands more, hundreds more properties. And that's why we started with this first phase of 89 properties. And the goal here is really to create some contiguous properties within a larger community that creates some critical masses. And this allows us to move forward with redevelopment of specific areas in a contiguous manner, which makes those redevelopment proposals much more feasible. We're looking at an area that has a lot of blight, it's a lot of scattershot, and it really takes getting control of contiguous areas that really make investment, redevelopment possible. And that's what we're doing here, is really getting the ownership of contiguous plots together in this eminent domain phase.
The owners involved in this say that they reached out to SLDC, they reached out to the city just a few days ago to talk about restarting talks or about coming to some kind of an agreement. They say that was ignored. Why move forward with this process, and is the door closed there?
Look, I mean, when I took office, as an alderperson, I was committed to moving forward with any way possible, any way necessary, I should say, not any way possible, any way necessary to get these properties back in good use. And, when I took office as mayor, I am proud that we gave renegotiating a try. We opened up the door. We gave one more good faith effort to try to renegotiate a settlement. Unfortunately, the terms from either side were so far apart that even meeting in the middle was not something that was feasible. And so that's where we move forward with this process here as we outlined today.
How do you market properties like this? Does the city try to stabilize the properties first, or how do you get those out of city hands?
Yeah, that's going to be the next process. Once we get the control of the properties, getting them into a marketable position is what SLDC will be working on next. But you're right. I mean, you've got to package them in a way. As I mentioned, that contiguous ownership is a critical piece here, and really envisioning what these properties can be used for in the next phase of their lifespan. There are many of them, not all of them, but several swaths are right adjacent to NGA, and so we think they can make an attractive investment opportunity moving forward.
Mr. McKee has said that he's one of the only ones who's invested in the north side and has even tried to do anything at all. How have you seen that narrative kind of shift over the years, or what do you think of that assertion?
It's been frustrating. The majority of these properties have languished under ownership there, and I'll just say I think it's time to move forward, and it's time to put the past behind us and move forward with a new vision for St. Louis, in particular North St. Louis.
I think it's a good segue into the project we've been working on this week about moving St. Louis forward. Just speaking generally, what does it take to move St. Louis forward?
Well, it takes some bold action sometimes and some tough decisions and some, I would say a vision for what's possible. And we've got to have, some feasible opportunities for investment. The city of St. Louis does not have the funds to redevelop all of the vacancy in our city alone. We have to have private investment. And in order to get that private investment organically, we've got to seed some of that. And that's exactly what we're doing here, is seeding some development. But we've got to have a proposal that makes sense for the private investor to come in. And that's where we're putting together these contiguous, finite tranches of land that make sense, that we believe have the capacity to attract that private investment to come alongside of the public's push here.
More than one developer told us this week that they feel like something that holds back investment in the city is red tape and outdated zoning policies. What do you think about that?
I think they're right, and that is exactly why we're working on those things. We've got the ZOOP, the new zoning proposal that the planning division has been working on for well over a year now. That is coming to fruition. It's going to be the first time in my lifetime the city has updated its zoning districts and how we approach zoning in the city of St. Louis. It's going to make it a lot easier to get through, eliminating a lot of the need for the Board of Adjustment and some of these other hurdles that are just enormous, adds an enormous amount of time to getting a proposal, a project online. The red tape, we recognize we've got to have a one-stop shop, and we have been working on that. SLDC has been working on that sort of one-stop shop permitting process for some time now. And as we move into 2026, some of those things those exciting aspects, those fixes will be coming online, and developers you're talking to are spot on, and we are excited to be working on those issues as we speak.
An issue that you've talked about a few times over the last few months is the idea of getting a better footprint downtown from some of our major stakeholders. Where do you see that going, and what's that process look like right now?
Well, right now, having conversations with the business community to really round out what that needs to look like. Just because the mayor says I want businesses downtown does not mean they show up. We have got to really work with our business community to understand what it will take to bring them down, whether that looks like a shared space, a collaborative opportunity, how we create that critical mass that's not only a benefit to downtown, but a benefit to our business community. And we're working on that right now, and hopefully we'll have more as the spring unfolds.
What's next in the next few months for you? What are you working on? What's your office working on right now?
We're working on a few things, quite a few things. Improving the city services is top of mind, making sure that we're delivering better city services, excellent city services as we go into the spring. Voters will be deciding whether or not to retain the earnings tax, which makes up a full 1/3 of our city's budget. So as we come on my 1 year in office, we are going to be engaging upon an exciting communication campaign to communicate to the voters what the mayor they elected has been doing, what our city services do, and what that earnings tax returns to residents. We're going to be coming out of the winter having hopefully a plan to better address homelessness and some trust in the community about how we can best serve those most vulnerable in our community. And we're going to be coming on the 1-year mark following the May 16th tornado. And so as we have these programs we've been putting in place over the last few months, shepherding, getting dollars out the door to really improve people's homes and developing a community-driven plan to reinvest in the north side neighborhoods that were ravaged by the tornado.
People talk about historic preservation laws holding back certain demolitions or progress. Is it time to start re-examining those to try to remove some properties following the tornado and following this action against Paul McKee?
That's an interesting question. I think the historic buildings in our city are some of our most valuable assets. The built environment in general is something you don't find in other cities in the world. And so I don't want to jeopardize the historic legacy that our city has. That being said, I recognize there are quite a few hurdles. Many of those are local in nature, neighborhood-driven preservation requirements. And I know many neighborhoods are re-envisioning some of those as we speak, and we are open to that and ready to work with neighborhoods who are interested in updating their standards, revisiting them, and ensuring that all residents within a community have the opportunity to improve their homes in a way that's economically feasible and make the investments to save buildings that are in jeopardy of continued vacancy.
One thing that came out of this week's stories just generally is that St. Louis is as a region, in a unique position at a unique time. Our regional population is stagnating, and we may stand at the precipice of a demographic winter, and yet there seems to be an optimism here about the ability to come out of that. How can St. Louis as a region work together to overcome that, and where do you see St. Louis going?
I do. I feel that optimism. You know, when I meet with other leaders throughout the region where there has historically been hostility, there's an openness, a willingness, a recognition that unless we start really working together, that stagnation you talked about is going to be the future. We all recognize that we'll be better off if we're working together. I feel that not only in the St. Louis region, but at the state level. I spent yesterday in Jefferson City meeting with our governor's team and a whole host of stakeholders, representatives from across the state who recognize how important St. Louis, the region, is to the state's GDP. And it's not just St. Louis that's stagnating, it's Missouri. But we have partners across the state that are ready to address those silos and work together. And that is just a recipe that we haven't seen before. We haven't seen the region ready and recognizing that in order to succeed, we've all got to come together, and the state being a partner there as well. We've got a governor that is just so supportive of St. Louis and recognizes how important we are, and that has really pervaded Jefferson City in a very positive way. And while, you know, look, I'm the first to admit I disagree politically with the majority of folks in Jefferson City, but there is a recognition that we have a lot of mutual interest when it comes to the economic growth of St. Louis region, and we're here to work together on those areas of alignment.
Is that relationship with the state improving?
Absolutely. You know, I am floored you know, as I mentioned, I was in Jefferson City yesterday. It's not my first time, nor will be my last, but I am really welcomed with open arms, you know, by folks across the aisle and across the state in a way that they all recognize has not been a working relationship with the city of St. Louis before, and they are very much welcoming it now, as am I. I mean, again, there's a lot of disagreement with some fundamental things here, but we have got to be able to put aside those disagreements, recognize where our values and our goals are aligned and work together on them. And that's exactly what we're doing. That's what I was elected to do, to best position St. Louis for growth. And I recognize that working with our state is a key component to getting the tools that we need to put St. Louis on the path for growth.